Hello fellow writers, my name is Laura and welcome back to my channel, Learn to Writer, where I help you deal with the mental challenges of being a writer. I recently did a video on how to know what advice you should take. You can probably click on it here or something if you want to go watch that one and decide whether you want to take my advice on taking advice. I'll wait. One of the things that I said in that video was that sometimes you take writing advice and you evaluate it and you decide that writing advice isn't really going to work for you. But then you can set it aside and it's very possible that at some point in the future it will be useful to you. And today what we're going to be talking about is how do I know if that writing advice that I have set aside is something that I should be revisiting? So one of the things that the Writing Excuses podcast likes to say is they give out their skills and they say these are tools and not rules. And one of the things that they mean by that is that you don't always need every tool for every project. Like if you don't have any nails, then you don't need a hammer in order to nail that down. That doesn't mean that you're never going to have nails in your project. You don't want to then get rid of your hammer because if you do have nails one day, then you want to be able to hammer those down. You might have tools for my character's motivation sucks, or a tool for what to do when this piece of writing is just blah. Most of the time, whatever technique that you have, like your just natural writing is going to fix that. And then there's the times when you come up against that and you're just like, I've rewritten this a million times and like this writing is still blah. This is the time when you want to go back to a tool that you may have set aside because all the tools that you're currently using are not working. You still have that problem. You have a problem you need to solve, right? So we want to find the tool that will help solve that problem. So recently I've been having a problem with my writing, the actual physical sitting down and writing, because my desk, where my computer is basically where I do everything. The computer, I also play video games there, I watch TV or Netflix, I do, research and buy things online. I also have stacked up all of my Pokemon card binders, bits there's just stuff all over the desk also, and it's just kind of like everything happens here, and so it's very hard for me to sit down and focus on actually writing. One of the things that I've done to figure out how to get around this is that I have a little tablet, just like an iPad tablet, that I keep upstairs, and it only has part of my story on it. Scrivener is a little annoying with when you've got 3 different devices, 2 of which are not always connected to the internet. Like sometimes it's so easy for it to get unsynced, and so I don't keep my full story files on my tablet. I just keep like a temporary Scrivener file that I move files in and out of. And so partially that can work in that I'm upstairs in my bedroom. There's less stuff for me to do up there. I don't have the entirety of my story, so I can't like get distracted by other bits of it. I kind of have the parts that I really want. For a lot of it, this really works, right? The one problem is that I generally only go upstairs at night when it is getting later, and so it's kind of time for bed, and so then I will write for a while, and then sometimes my body is just like, but I am tired. And then so I don't really end up getting a whole bunch of writing done. Also, the smaller screen doesn't really work for editing really well for me, and I'm definitely at the point in my story now where like there's still some like legit writing to do, but a lot of it is editing, and that just doesn't work so well on the smaller screen. This is a problem that I have just over and over again in my writing career, is the sitting down and the motivation and finding time and all that kind of stuff. And all the things that I had been working that had been working before aren't quite working the way that I need them to in order to get this book finished. I was recently on the Writing Excuses retreat and cruise. You've probably seen a video or two where I've been on that. And one of the things was on one of the last days, Mary Robinette Kowal, who was our main instructor for the cruise, had a session where it was like a guided writing time where like she was going to sit down and work on one of her current projects, and then we could all come and write with her and like all this kind of stuff. And so she kind of like explained her project and all that kind of stuff, and then she pulled out her phone and she had a app on her phone that did the Pomodoro technique, the one where it's like you work for like 25 minutes and then you have like a 5-minute break. And this is advice, you know, I had been told about this before and I had tried it out, and it never really worked all that well for me. But I was like, well, I'm here, so I might as well, you know, do what Mary Robinette is leading us with. And so the little app like talked to us and was like, you are now starting your 25-minute blah blah. Um, and, you know, so we all sat down and wrote for 25 minutes, and then at the end of the period, it was like, now you are starting your 5-minute whatever, whatever. And then it's really funny, though, also, because the voice that was this app's voice, it sounded like Lego Batman. And that just made me chuckle. Anyway, so Lego Batman then took us through some breathing exercises during our 5-minute break. And I have done like meditation type stuff before, and so like that I kind of settled into pretty easily, except that I had like been in mid-sentence when it was like, your 25 minutes are up, and I was like, but I want to finish but I did the 5 minutes of the meditation, or it was like 4 minutes of meditation, and it's like, and you have 1 minute before your next whatever starts. And so then, you know, we did that, and we went into another 25-minute of thing. And then there was another like guided, it was actually a different guided thing at the end of the second 5. So it wasn't like the same exact thing, which I found I appreciated. And it ended up working pretty well. Like the second 25 minutes, I was able to get back into my writing and go with my writing and finish all this stuff. And so I kind of liked that. And when I got home, I was like, I want to kind of try this. I mean, one of the problems that I feel like I had with it when I tried it before was that the 5 minutes, like, it was like, okay, I've worked 25 minutes, which to me didn't feel all that long for sitting down and doing something, right? It's like only 25 minutes. And then it's like, well, here's 5 minutes, and I'm like, I can't do anything in 5 minutes. 5 minutes is like nothing. Like I sneeze and 5 minutes is up, right? And so, you know, like, it just never stuck with me, because I'm like, why don't I just keep working? Like, I do the 25 minutes, and then why am I stopping for 5 minutes, and then So part of it was the, like, having an actual guided thing during those 5 minutes made it not seem like it was worthless or whatever. And then I got home, and I tried to use that app, but it's actually like a pay per whatever. And so I was like, okay, I'm still going to try this. I don't want to pay for the app, but, you know. So, you know, I just set an alarm for 25 minutes, and then when I got to the end of the 25 minutes, I was like, okay, I'm stopping. You know, like I was very hard about that end. And then I was like, you know what, I'm going to set a time for like 15 minutes, right? To my brain, to my ADHD brain, I was like, okay, I actually have not a lot of time, but it's definitely time to get something done. And so, like, I stood up and I went and put away some of my tools. Like, I had done a woodworking project, and then I had just set my tools into a place, and then, of course, they stayed there because that's what happens. But anyway, I picked up my tools, and I put my tools away, and I organized that a little bit, and then, like, I went and got a drink of water, and I, like, cleaned up the kitchen a little bit, and then it was like, and then the alarm went off for the end of the 15 minutes. And so then I sat down and started writing again, but I feel like giving myself, I might play around with whether 10 minutes works better or 15 minutes works better, but like 5 minutes doesn't feel like anything to me. But 10 minutes, I'm like, okay, I could actually like do something else, right? 10 minutes, 15 minutes, I could, you know, clean this one thing, or I could put away this one thing. I could walk these things upstairs and put them, you know, just all those things where it's like it doesn't take all that much time, but like you sit there and you just stare at them, and they sit there forever, and that's like their new home because you're absolutely never going to move them. Yeah, those things. So that actually worked pretty well, but like I said, this is a technique that I had tried before, and I had like set it aside, and now I've gone back to it, and I'm like, okay, this might actually work for this project, where I am in this project right now, and where I am in my life. Like, this technique this tool is going to work for me. The thing that I'm trying to bring to your attention here is, you're going to get advice where you look at it and you're like, nope, this is never going to work. And it's always a good idea to not just totally throw those ideas out and be like, I will never use this thing. The same way that I will repeatedly and always say, never throw away any of your work, any of the writing that you have done, any of the anything that you have done, because it might suck now and you might want it again later. Like, just don't ever delete anything. So also, don't throw away any of your advice, not completely. You might never use it again, that technique might never work for you forever, but you don't need to throw it away. So what I suggest that you do is that in your mind, you get a beautiful red tool chest, like this one here. It is beautiful and shiny. I've always wanted one of these, but I don't have space in my house right now. And I am not saying that you actually have to buy a tool chest like this, but for me, it helps me to picture this beautiful tool chest, because it is shiny, and it is red, and it is beautiful. And so you can see all the you've got the little narrow shelves up at the top, or the narrow drawers up at the top. And that's where you're going to put all of your tools and things that you use all the time, right? Those are easy. They're at the top. The drawer isn't very deep, so you can, you get them, you look in there, and they're all like laid out beautifully and like even. And you can just pick out the one that you want and use it, and then put it back, and you can always find what you want. And then down a little bit, there's the slightly deeper drawers. That's where you use the stuff that you put the tools where you use those kind of a lot, but not like all the time. It's a little deeper. You might have to dig for it a little bit. And then the bottom, the very big one, you put all the stuff that you don't think you're ever going to use. Just toss it in there. It's deep. It's very hard to it might be hard for you to find it. But unlike an actual tool chest, this one doesn't ever run out of space, right? But, you've got at the top, you've got all of your tools that you use a lot. You've got the ones that you use sometimes, and then you've got all the ones that you can sort through when something isn't working and you're like, I need to try a different idea. If your normal writing habits and your normal writing tools are working, then there's no need to go digging around in your tool chest, right? But if something isn't working, it might be worth your time in going back to some of the advice that you have set aside, that you've heard and been like, that doesn't work for me, and retry it and see if that doesn't help with whatever situation you're struggling with. Because something that didn't work, some piece of advice or some tool that didn't work before might be what you need for this project at this moment, at this point in your life. And so you might as well try it and see what comes of it. And then it's totally worth it that you have kept it. So if you like this video, go ahead and like this video. If you would like to see more of my writing advice for learning to writer, go ahead and subscribe so you can stick around for that. And let me know about a piece of advice that you once thought you would never ever use, and then it ended up being pivotal to you at some point, because that was what you needed at that time or for that project. All right? And I will see you guys in the next video. Okay, bye-bye.